Prime Minister Narendra Modi has held a high-level review meeting today. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. That's our big focus on the broadcast tonight. Yes, this meeting has been held with central ministry secretaries to assess governance reforms, ease of doing business and overall ministry performance. During the meeting, the Prime Minister reiterated the government's vision of Viksit Bharat 2047, urging faster decision-making, reduced delays and a more people-centric approach to governance. Several secretaries presented progress reports on key reforms and citizen-centric initiatives. The review also gained significance in the context of the centre's 52 reforms in 52 weeks program, which sets clear timelines for implementing governance reforms across multiple ministries, including the Ministry of Railways. Prime Minister Modi has repeatedly stressed time-bound implementation and measurable outcomes, making periodic review meetings a key part of the government's governance model. The secretaries are expected to present detailed progress reports now on reforms under the initiative, along with challenges faced and future action plans. The review also comes amid strong economic indicators and the government's broader push towards achieving the vision of a developed India by 2047. Joining us now live, Pathikrit Pine, international affairs expert, Sharad Kohli, senior economist, also joins us live. Ambassador Gauri Shankar Gupta, former diplomat, is joining the broadcast. Kalyani Shankar, senior journalist, is also live with us on the program. Kalyani Shankar, what according to you was the main takeaway from Prime Minister Modi's key meeting today?
Well, you see, I haven't got the details as said. Probably the details will give us better understanding. But it is a very important meeting, no doubt about this. And then, the PM has been going to so many other countries in the meantime, and he has been inviting those investors to come and, invest in India. They all might have asked about the reforms, I'm sure. That is one of the reasons why he has started as soon as he came back, and he's convening the meeting of the secretaries. The secretaries are very important because, they are the people who implement the policies. So without their cooperation, government cannot do anything. So that is why probably that he's got all the secretaries to come and meet. I believe each one was given 3 minutes to talk about what they had done, what they have expecting in the future. So to that extent, PM must have got the assessment in a very short way. So the 3 minutes, I don't think anybody can manage to give full achievements of that department. And the reforms are, they've been waiting to be implemented. Number of reforms have been there. The second generation reforms itself has not been completed. The third generation is to come. And now they are talking of the 2047. Not tomorrow, not next year, not 10 years later. It is 2047, the Viksit Bharat. So with that in view, they are doing all the reforms. So that was one of the reasons that Prime Minister had met all the secretaries today. And also, they have been talking about reshuffle, cabinet reshuffle. Probably this would give him an understanding of the performance of each ministry and the minister also, whether they've done well or not well. But this need not have to be the way that he should get information. Even normally, cabinet secretary, they get all the department success and whatever they want to do to the Prime Minister, they assess every time. But it so happened that they are having the meeting today, and then he must have got it fresh about economic. And the economy definitely needs to be a very important part of the Viksit Bharat in 2047, because our economic performance has been okay even till last year, this year also. But they have to maintain it at that level. So they have to do this digital reforms and then, ease of business reforms. And there are quite a few like this which needs to be done. And that, I think he must have talked to the secretaries today. And let's see what exactly happens later.
Okay, let me also then take that to you, Sharad Kohli, on, of course, this key meeting today. What all you believe was top of the agenda, how crucial these meetings are given the fact that the Prime Minister, is the one chairing them, and how much pace are reforms likely to get through meetings like this?
Good evening, Uday, to you, my fellow panelists and the viewers. Well, if you ask me, this is not a quote. This is if I was interpreting it, that what must have transpired in the meeting, then the very first word should have been, how's the Josh? Because We just have 21 years to go before we hit the 2047 Viksit Bharat deadline. And the time is going to fly past even before we know. And the 52-week, 52 reforms. That is, we need one reform every week. No week should go where, I mean, you could do 2 in a week and then skip off 1 week. That's different. But basically, on an average, one reform every week is need of the hour. And this country, I must tell you, Uday, reform is a constant process. Reform is a concurrent process. Reform is not a process which you, for this country, which you probably will think about the reform in 2027, 2028. No, reforms is an ongoing process. And this government has proved that ever since it came to power in 2014. Reforms has become a habit. Reforms have become a part of the way the government functions. And it is a step in the right direction. Today, where we are, in the complex global situation that we are right now, if you see what is happening around the world economy is under pressure. If we have managed to be resilient, if we have managed to be immune to a certain extent, I won't say completely immune, but immune to a certain extent, that we've handled this crisis ever since 2020 when the COVID came, then the Russia-Ukraine war, then thereafter the tariff game started, and then the Iran war. This whole decade has been very challenging, and why we have managed to be so resilient is because of the reforms, because of the vision that this government has, because the vision that Prime Minister has to take this government, and it's he hardly sleeps. So all that he thinks of is how the country can become Viksit Bharat, how this country can come out of the woods which it was in all these decades. But I think as far as the reforms are concerned, to be very pinpointed to that, I think ease of doing business and ease of living.
I was just going to ask you that. I was just going to ask you that because that's what our sources told us, Sharad. That's what our sources told us, that there was a key focus and a push for ease of doing business and ease of living. This was also emphasized on today. How crucial is that?
Because all the reforms, if you look at it from a comprehensive point of view, all the reforms, they revolve around these two objectives. Ease of living is the people, and ease of doing business is the economy, the business, the corporate world, the startups, the youth, their aspirations as to how to start a business. How can you make India has dropped down? India has improved its ease of living, ease of doing business, and ease of living as well. But then there's a lot which needs to be done yet. We haven't achieved the goals, which is why I said that reform is a constant process. And I'm sure, a very important point here, Uday. Why did he meet the secretaries? From whatever I know, the ministers were not there in this meeting. So it was like a direct between the Prime Minister and secretaries. Let's hear from the horse's mouth. Why I said horse's mouth? Because these are the people, as Mr. Shankar said, these are the people who actually put the policies on the ground. These are the people who implement the policy. Ministers take decisions. And these are the people who actually tell you where do we stand today. So hearing from the secretaries, it gives him the first-hand information of how do things stand. So I think there's going to be very strict monitoring from here. We're already hearing of a cabinet reshuffle. There may be a lot of changes being made for the remaining part of this government, Modi 3.0. But then the secretaries, most of the cases, they remain the same. They don't get shuffled as often as the ministers, they get reshuffled. So I think this is a case where Prime Minister has shown that he's in a hurry. He doesn't want to sit on his laurels. And every time he travels abroad there, this is one thing that he tells the diaspora over there, that look, we are looking at Viksit Bharat, but Viksit Bharat can only be Viksit if the reforms catch speed, if the reforms are done one every week. I am personally looking forward, coming from the world of economics, I am looking forward to, and if I start naming the possible reforms today, probably I'll end up burning away the rest of the show.
Right.
As a matter of respect to other speakers, I'll...
Kalyani Shankar, I want to quickly get you in though on this cabinet reshuffle talk and buzz as well. Do you believe today's meeting is setting the ball rolling for that eventually? Reportedly, the Council of Ministers who had met earlier were also given, clear messaging by Prime Minister on reforms, on, of course, on progress made in their ministries. There was also a message on how India has evolved from this crisis, this geopolitical crisis, and how they should also make changes in their respective ministries and day-to-day functioning. That Council of Ministers meeting was key. Now this meeting with secretaries, is this setting the ball rolling for a cabinet reshuffle? How soon could it happen, Kalyani? What's your sense? What's your hunch?
Yeah, actually, no prime minister ever discusses about his cabinet reshuffle or expansion or any of these things. That's his prerogative. So he sits with some of his closest people and then he decides. But for that, you need the performance of the ministers, who has done well, who has not done well, who has got, particularly education has become a very bad way. The whole country now that NEET is really becoming a problem. But like that, there are many things, which public is annoyed with. So he has to look at all these things and decide and reshuffle also. And maybe they might draft some people like the Comrades plan. Um, so draft some people to the party also. Party definitely needs more heavyweight. So I think he'll have to think of all these things and make a decision. And I don't think that it's only because of this he will do it, but this is one aspect which could have influenced him. That's all. I've never seen any prime minister doing this, discussing with them other ministers or anything like that. It is his prerogative. It's always a secret. And you must have seen how secretive Modi government has been. So nobody ever knows who is going to be in and who is going to be shifted and who is going to be out.
Yes, indeed. And also, Atmanirbharta, Make in India, these were some other themes, Ambassador Gupta, that were also reportedly brought out today. Now, how important is this to push this further so that we continue getting investment into India? Ease of doing business as well has again increased our FDIs and increased, of course, inflows into India as too.
Good evening, Udayji, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. You see, Prime Minister Modi, ever since he became PM, he has been given a lot of emphasis on economic agenda. His focus has been that how India can develop economically. And that is why first reform he brought was GST reform, which you remember the bill was passed at midnight and there were a lot of hue and cry over that. But now everybody seems to be extremely happy with that reform. And then he introduced, tax reforms and income tax and other tax laws were also brought under, some sort of rationalization. Then labor codes were introduced, we had about 27, 28 labor laws in the country, and they have now brought down to 4 labor codes. I think that's a great achievement. No government has been able to do in the past, but they have been able to do it. Then digitalization has also been a great, success. In fact, the direct credit to the accounts, subsidies, that has been a great achievement, as well as the payment system. So these are, some of the reforms which are visible. In addition, the defense sector has been opened considerably, which has brought in a lot of investments from private sector. And they're also opening the nuclear sector, insurance sector, and to some extent, the railways. Now, these sectors will definitely bring in more investments. Now, Viksit Bharat 2047 is possible only when we, are able to get more investments in the economy, both domestically as well as from FDI, the foreign direct investments. All these are essential, and FDI can come only when our systems are, transparent, when they are simple, when they are not complicated. And that is why we need to make ease of business as one of the primary, focus. Then citizens, as a citizen, I can tell you personally my experience. We still continue to suffer. The state governments have not been able to, emphasize the ease for the citizens. And therefore, they need to do some sort of coordination with the state governments also, that how the citizens of the country could wriggle out of all these lot of cumbersome procedures which we have to undertake for very, very simple formalities. If you have to construct a house, for example, there are so many requirements which have to be done, and then there's total confusion. Nobody is able to tell you what you need to do. And you construct a road, next day it is broken, then third day another person comes, some pipelines will be laid, some cables will be laid, all kinds of things are still happening in the state. So state remains a challenge, and so is the judiciary. I think judiciary, some cases remain pending for decades, and a lot of important work gets completely held up because of that. To some extent, the attitude of bureaucracy is also, because I have been part of that bureaucracy and I know the bureaucracy doesn't change very easily. And they have this convenience route, the path which has been trodden in the past is always convenient to follow. And therefore, they don't want to go into the new areas and new innovations. I think that is very, very essential. So the ease of doing business as well as ease for the citizens, ease of living, these are very important aspects. 2047, I think we need to do a lot of work and need to do continuous work on that. As Sarajji mentioned, that this is not a one-time thing; it's a continuous process. PM and other ministers should keep monitoring each of these areas clearly, and then only I think the economy can continue to pick up. We are doing very well. I say 7% growth rate in this time is not bad at all, but that is not sufficient. We have to move forward. And 47, if the target is, then I think we have to attain 8.5% as normal growth rate in the country. And for that, these two kinds of reforms
Yes.
are needed.
Yes. Patikrit, fine. Let me also draw you in here on how crucial, how important you believe today's meeting was in accelerating our growth as we head towards Viksit Bharat 2047. Also, it comes at a time when this Modi 3.0 government is reaching its halfway point. At that juncture, it is important to ensure that no complacency sets in, no anti-incumbency sets in, and that deadlines, timelines, and goals set are being achieved, are on track. In that context, Patikrit, how important was today's meeting and what do you hope will be the outcome?
Uday, first of all, if you have to take a reference point for this government, then 2013 we were among the fragile 5 economies of the world. By 2024, we became one of the major 5 economies of the world. Now, in spite of the COVID and all kind of disruptions that happened because of Ukraine crisis, Middle East crisis, we still emerged as a bright spot in a dark horizon, as been mentioned by the IMF. So the Prime Minister works on a mission mode. We all know that. And I think he expects the same from all the ministries and all the bureaucrats. So I think if you ask me, it has been rightly mentioned, a lot of critical reforms, which many previous governments were reluctant to take, this government has actually taken up on issues of internal security, on issues of industrialization, on issues of working towards making India a critical point of development of global supply chains. Things have done. Nobody would have thought 5 years back that India can become one of the biggest manufacturers of drones in the world. Today, there are 600 companies in India which are manufacturing drones. Operation Sindoor was a classic example of a lot of things that have been made in India. But if I were today in the meeting, and if I had the, most humbly, I would say, if I had the opportunity to take one point which I would have said to the PM to take up with the utmost humility, I would have said that, the bureaucracy and the ministries must stop seeking advice from the Big 4 and Big 5 consulting companies for everything that has to be done. That is a big issue, and I'm sure I am aware of it, that the PMO itself is very much concerned because of the overwhelming dependence on Big 5 consulting companies telling everything about what is to be done. Secondly, we are on the right track, but on the issues of tech sovereignty and digital sovereignty, I think many of the ministries will have to work on a mission mode. I would have said that an enormous amount of effort has been made in the last 10 years, but I would still say majority of that is because of the personal effort, the personal mission mode approach of the Prime Minister of the country, the Home Minister of the country, and many other ministers, but especially these two ministers. When Home Minister said that we will make a Naxal Mukht Bharat, he made it. And I think that mission mode approach has to be there in the ministries. That is extremely critical. Over and above that, I always say that I think our economy is far better than that of many of the European countries. But the European countries look better because their municipal corporations are better. So when it comes to reforms, we live in urban centers. Our municipal corporations are some of the worst in the world. So we require a lot of change when it comes to urban reforms. So far as structural reforms is concerned, I would say one thing with utmost humility, I know a lot of bureaucrats who are extremely efficient, but just like we seek ministerial accountability, there has to be bureaucratic accountability as well. One of the esteemed member talked about the NEET issue. The NEET is as much about the education ministry as it is about the NTA headed by the DG of NTA. So where is the bureaucratic accountability? And unless we actually fix the bureaucratic accountability, the accountability of every PSU, unless we work on a mission mode, that chalta hai approach has to go. In 2014, when Prime Minister Modi came to power, the first thing he told to DRDO that the chalta hai approach has to go. So yes, it has to be a whole of government approach. Every time we see major reforms are being brought in, Prime Minister has taken individual initiatives. Sometimes he may have also faced resistance. I know there are certain people who were hoping that the first 5 years, by 2019, Prime Minister would depart and the other government will come in. And I can say it with confidence. A section were not very happy with because they were made to work. And there were parallel power centers who were, working overnight to ensure that things happen. And that's why it was important to take action on the likes of Delhi Gymkhana Club and many others. But the issue is this today, the path ahead is not going to be easy. The entrenched powerhouses of the world are not going to make life easy for you. So as you move towards from a $4 trillion economy to a $10 trillion economy, you need to have innovation, you need to have far more investments, and you need to be prepared for disruptions. So that disruption part is very critical. The ministries, the bureaucracy, the government, and everyone will have to come together to be prepared for the next major disruption. And how do we ensure that our entire growth trajectory remains on the same track in spite of the disruptions? And that is where I think a lot more has to be done by the government departments.
Okay. Point taken. I'll come back.
Whatever happens,
I'll come back to you in just a second. I want to quickly draw in Sharad Kohli back again on, of course, also these reforms as well. The Modi government has been announcing big reforms, from time to time. Be it, of course, GST, be it, of course, the demonetization, be it, of course, the simplification now of the GST rates as well that we saw last year. We've also seen, of course, the doing away of several of the archaic colonial laws and many others, but I'm just talking about some of the biggest reforms which have been announced, from, of course, a lot of, the privatization of Air India as well. Many other reforms have been done by this government from time to time. How important is it at this juncture, Sharad Kohli? And how likely is it as well that we could perhaps see some more reforms looking at the volatile economic climate that we see in the world today, particularly in this year of 2026?
Answering your question, Uday, and taking a leaf from what Pathikrit was saying, I'll just carry on from what he said. That, when he spoke of disruptions, a very important part of the reforms would be preparedness for artificial intelligence and use of artificial intelligence in governance, use of artificial intelligence in various areas where the government is in reforms. So without AI, I feel the whole reform process now, this is a very, very important aspect of that, because countries in Europe, America, and a lot of other developed countries, for that I know that the entire governance system is working on AI. It's not that India is totally aloof from AI. I'll never say that. But, in terms of AI, I would say we are about a couple of years behind, because the entities which have developed AI tools across America, they have used Indian brains, undoubtedly. But then, India was slightly lagging in terms of AI. So I think AI would be a very important aspect. And I'm sure in today's meeting, AI would have been the center point, or shall I say the common thread between all the dissemination which the secretaries have done to the Prime Minister. Because without AI being aligned with the reforms, I think the reforms after some time will become obsolete, and they may carry no meaning for that matter. Of course, when you're changing a law, when you're changing guidelines, that is different. But then when it comes down to implementation, so I feel AI is something which will go hand in hand when we move towards 2047. And we have to catch up with whatever we lost. If I say we are 2 years behind, then we should catch up with that. And it's not difficult with AI because there are Indian brains, as I said, developing AI tools. But as you rightly said, GST reforms, reforms in the direct tax systems, faceless assessments. I mean, as I said, if I go on to name, the biggest reform has been DBT, and a very important reform, which I'm sure must have come up today, which I'm sure Patikrut would also agree with me, is manufacturing. Because I find that the startups are becoming aggregators. They are depending a lot on technology. But when you speak to youth today and you tell them that you better start a factory, you will find that he starts scratching his head. He or she says, oh, that seems to be complicated. I don't get valuations. That's going to be a headache. That thought needs to be thrown out of the window. The startups closest to my heart, I'm a startup mentor also in my capacity as a startup guru, which I was given this term. But I find a lot of startups are reluctant to go into, and manufacturing is very close to Prime Minister's heart. In COVID, when he gave this nara of Atmanirbhar, it was about manufacturing. And look what is happening now. Countries are becoming vested. Countries are becoming selfish. Countries are only looking after their own interests. In this situation, tomorrow China, twists our arm and we run short of lithium in EV batteries. Tomorrow something happens, we run short of fertilizers. I think manufacturing is the way to go.
Okay, I'm beginning to run out of time. I'm beginning to run out of time. There's 30 seconds, Patikrit. 30 seconds on the way forward. Post this meeting.
I completely agree. See, first and foremost, AI is a very, very critical tool, but we have to be prepared for the disruptions in employment situation that AI is going to bring in. Secondly, very right, Sharad sir mentioned about the education, sector. Are we prepared for that? I mean, today's educated generation is very reluctant to get into the field and actually get the real work done. So you need a mentality change. That's not the work of the government, but there has to be a change in that. That's very important. Last but not the least, eventually you need to work towards development of your own tech stack, tech sovereignty, digital sovereignty. Even when you talk about AI, it is somebody else's tool that you're using, the LLM, the model. You have to own it, because the future is going to be completely different from what it was 20 years back and even what it is now. We shudder to think. So the most critical thing, your economic reforms will continue. Like COVID, God knows what next is waiting. And I think that development of resilience within the bureaucracy, with the highest of respect to the bureaucracy, everywhere it has to be institutionalized, so that work in the government should not be just about because we have a great prime minister. It should be so much institutionalized that at every stage it will work on a autopilot basis. That's the most important reform I believe should be done. Back to you.
All right. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us. We've run totally out of time. We will be tracking this story, of course, for our viewers. But for the time being, we're slipping into a short break.